I think we just need to set out what's been going on in Trump's America. Because for the first time in decades, due to extreme weather conditions, the inauguration was moved indoors. That meant Trump will not be able to talk endlessly about crowd sizes this time round. But it also meant, Freddie, that your ticket got cancelled.
Yes, me, Nigel Farage, and a group of very angry MAGA donors. So that was a shame. But
so what did you do instead?
Oh, it's much like a party conference, I would say, in the UK. It's essentially a weekend of celebrations. So you sort of hop from party to party. The Mar-a-Lago set flew in for the weekend. So there's lots of people that look like they spend a lot of time at Palm Beach, floating around. Lots of black ties, tuxedos, boat parties, hotel lobbies, that sort of thing. So no, it was. I tell you what, it was extremely celebratory. I've never seen such confidence, bordering on arrogance of a political movement.
Well, I mean, you've touched on it there, but what was the atmosphere like in Washington on Monday, Inauguration Day?
It was dominant of, we are here, we've arrived, the Democrats can leave. You didn't see a Democrat around town. I mean, and some people I know actually left town for the weekend because they didn't want to be here. So the whole city has changed its vibes, and that's been happening for a while now. The Republican staffers have been dripping in, trying to grab coffees with Trump aides, trying to get those administration jobs. Many have been flying up and down to Mar-a-Lago, trying to get that meeting, just sitting in cafes, waiting for someone important to walk in. So that's the atmosphere. It's a scramble for jobs. I think you should also remember that Trump has spent the past 4 years at Mar-a-Lago. So that's still the center of his politics. I was speaking to one of his friends who sees him down there, and they said they do expect him to spend a lot of time there, as he did in his first term, because they describe it as his happy place. He doesn't like Washington. He likes Mar-a-Lago. So the cultural infusion of Mar-a-Lago into Washington has been one of the most interesting things.
Rachel, your best and worst moments from the inauguration of the 47th and 45th President of the United States?
It has nothing to do with Trump at all. It's the musician Kid Rock being interviewed by the BBC presenter who described herself as looking like she was about to hit the slopes with her hat and her gloves and her earmuffs because it was so cold. And the reason she had to say what she was wearing was because he asked her and he was basically hitting on her, and it was that lovely kind of surreal moment of, I guess, American forwardness meets BBC interview proprietary. The one line that I think stood out to me in the inauguration speech was, "I was saved by God to make America great again." And obviously this refers to the assassination attempt, but I've seen a lot of discourse on whether he sort of believes it or not, and is this taking Trump seriously or literally? Does he really believe that he was saved by God? And I kind of am starting to feel that the answer actually is yes. And that attitude was kind of seeped into the speech, this idea of American exceptionalism, of destiny, manifest destiny, and of Trump as a savior figure who had been chosen to lead America at this moment. And that, I think, sums up the attitude and the vibe and the atmosphere. Like everything else in the speech, if you sort of come back to chosen by God, it all starts to make a very surreal kind of sense.
It was an extraordinary, rambling speech, and I was watching that, and I think the thing that just stood out for me was that there was a standing ovation at that point from all but Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, the Clintons. And I'm very bad at doing this myself, but they really couldn't disguise the eye rolling and just what the hell is going on here. It was quite striking. I mean, talking about the room where it happens, it was noticeable, wasn't it, Freddie, that very close to the front you had the tech bros, as it were, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. How is Trump going to straddle this sort of populist anti-establishment rhetoric, which he so loves, while simultaneously being so closely surrounded by the wealthiest and most powerful people on the planet in the corporate world?
Well, to understand that question, I think the best thing we can do is compare it with his first inauguration speech back in 2017. This was his American carnage speech. He railed against globalization, deindustrialization, the wealthy elites that had happily got rich over asset price inflation while everyone else had lost their manufacturing jobs. He spoke about mothers and children trapped in poverty, rusted out factories. He promised to stop jobs going overseas. He described the forgotten men and women of our country who will be forgotten no longer. I mean, it was almost a Bernie Sanders speech. He mentioned immigration once. It was essentially American populism in the American sense of the phrase, and that was completely absent, I think, from the most recent inaugural address. This was actually, it wasn't a lament about poverty. It was sat within the American tradition of expansionism, the frontier, the Wild West, exploration, American exceptionalism, as Rachel said, American imperialism, you can make a strong argument for. So that shift, I think, signals this broader shift that's happened within the movement, where the populist nationalists, of whom Steve Bannon's become the figurehead, against these tech bros, techno utopists, whatever you want to call them, under Elon Musk. And there seems to have been a shift towards Elon Musk, symbolized in the inaugural address.
Can I ask you a question, Freddie? This is We Ask Freddie section of the podcast. How long do you think the Trump-Musk friendship is going to last? How long before they fall out? And I mention this because Anthony Scaramucci, who lasted
a day, wasn't it?
17 days?
17
days as Trump's communications advisor, has given it until the end of the year, which if you count time in Scaramucci's is I think that's about 20. How many Scaramucci's, or pick a time measurement of your choice before that relationship blows up? Because it's going to happen, right?
What it reminds me of is Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson. You've got this quite blasé, extravagant, flamboyant figurehead, and then this person who wants to rip up the state. Perhaps the biggest difference is that Elon Musk has his own power base, and that's an even greater source of tension between the two. We saw yesterday, I think it was, or the day before yesterday, Trump announced in the White House this big new AI company next to Larry Ellison, Sam Altman, and Massa from SoftBank, the SoftBank CEO. And it was this 500 billion, or he said it was this 500 billion pound new company that was going to build the data centers, which were the essential infrastructure for this AI revolution. 12 hours later, or whatever it was, Elon Musk tweets at Sam Altman of OpenAI saying, "You don't have the money. I know you don't. I've got it on good source." So he's directly contradicting Donald Trump already. We do know, though, that Elon Musk already has a government email. He's been fighting for a White House West Wing pass, which it sounds like he's probably going to get, because he's been on a building which is in the White House complex, but not in the West Wing. So it doesn't seem like his influence is yet dissipating. We also saw Trump's reference to traveling to Mars during the inaugural address, which is really interesting because NASA for a long time has been saying they want to go to the moon.
Was that just a bone for Musk, throwing him a bone?
Oh, completely. But everyone knew it was a bone. Musk knew it was. Everyone knows that going to Mars is Musk's defining mission. Trump knows that. Everyone knows that Trump knows that. So it was this, benighting of Elon Musk as the key lieutenant of the administration. He wouldn't have done it otherwise. You've got to remember that he still holds Elon Musk responsible for his victory, because Elon Musk spent $250 million shoring up Pennsylvania.
I think obviously, yes, it was a bone to Musk, but also in terms of the bombastic rhetoric that Trump really likes to use. If Freddie mentioned the word imperialism a moment ago. If we're in this new era of America pushing the boundaries, spheres of influence, and we're having conversations. We are having conversations about Greenland and the Panama Canal, which was also in the speech. Then to kind of paint over all of that, this sort of overarching arc of, and also Mars, it kind of fits with the messaging, fits with the ethos, think big, think about Mars, and then Greenland and Panama Canal don't seem as, outlandish.
I mean, the other thing that was extraordinary, obviously we had all the rhetoric, we had the choice of guests, but then Trump sort of embarked on his own, tiny desk concert, on stage in the Capital One Arena. He he started straight away signing executive orders. It was unbelievable, reversing Biden administration directives, mandating federal workers work in the office full time, obviously withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accords, from the WHO. What impact have they had already? Can you see, Rachel, and then we'll go to Freddie?
Well, I think the one about federal workers having to go back to the office, that is already having an impact, and the sort of immediate closure, I think they're all on paid leave, but the departments are going to be closed, all the DEI departments, that's going to have an effect from day one. Now, I am no longer on Twitter X regularly, but I do pop in every so often to see what's going on. And for the last 48 hours, my For You X feed has just been full of people sharing which may be true or may be total fiction, but my neighbour is a federal employee and he has to go back to the office next week, tomorrow, straight from or I've got a family member who voted for Trump and now they're going to lose their job in DEI. You get what you vote for. And I have no idea if this stuff is true. I imagine like a lot of it is just made up internet stories.
Well,
but that's certainly what the X algorithm is pushing at me, and I think that's going to be the first really visible, tangible change. Some of the other executive orders are going to get held up in the courts for months and months and months and months and months.
Freddie, I want you to pick up on that point about how many you think will get through. But I mean, it's interesting. That isn't just anecdote. I mean, Ben Walker, obviously our data whiz here at the New Statesman, he's done some analysis. It shows that his popularity is at nearly at an all-time high. 6 in 10 Americans now optimistic about the next 4 years. He's doing this stuff, but people want it, don't they?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if you look at his campaign, it was essentially an anti-woke campaign. He was railing against the liberal establishment, if not the economic establishment. And that's symbolised with the DEI programs. The DEI, diversity, equality and inclusion, is what you think of when we talk about woke. It's programs to increase racial, gender, sexual diversity, that sort of thing. So he's outlawed them. They're no longer going to be allowed in federal government. He's put all of the DEI offices on paid leave. So that's an important symbol. And we can come on to what that says about his relationship with Keir Starmer in a bit. The other interesting executive order we should look at is the pardoning. He's pardoned 1,600 of the January 6th. Well, not as popular. No, definitely not popular with the Republican Party in Washington. We've got to remember that this includes some of the violent protesters who attacked police officers 4 years ago. J.D. Vance, the vice president, had said that they, of course, wouldn't pardon the violent people who attacked police officers because they're the Republicans and they support police officers. Mike Johnson, who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, this key person who's going to have to try and fight to get Trump's legislative agenda through, has said the president made a decision and we're not going to second guess that. So there's this sort of blind fealty acceptance of what Trump's done. But I think lots of people in the Capitol, but also around Washington, are taken aback by how bold and bullish that pardoning was. That's one of the key ones, because these people are leaving right now. I think there was one of the leaders of, it was either the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys. He's in the Capitol right now. We just got reports that he's there to lobby Republican senators to try and get more people pardoned. So that's having an immediate impact too.
Freddie, other than the pardons, did anything stick out for you from the array of executive orders that you think is going to get held up in the courts, that Trump is going to face some pushback on? Immigration, maybe, I don't know, changing citizenship rights.
The biggest thing is the attempt to stop birthright citizenship. This is the idea is that lots of people, illegal immigrants who don't have a right to be in America, will come here and have a child, and that child, because they were born in America, is automatically a US citizen. So the problem for Trump is that is ingrained in the Constitution. So we would probably need a constitutional amendment, which would require 3/4 of states and Congress to agree to, rather than just an executive order. So there are quite a few examples like that. There's some question about whether he can use the military at the border. He's already ordered US Northern Command, which is the US military in North America, to prepare plans to go to the southern border, and the way in which he's justifying that is that there's an invasion. There's also similar questions around the categorization of the cartels as terrorist groups and how that relates to terms of engagement and things like this. I think, there will be a lot, as Rachel said, there will be lots of court cases. I think that 4 have already been put into the courts today. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think many of the general gist of where we're going is going to, like, Paris climate change accords gone. He's declared a national energy emergency, which is going to allow him to disregard environmental planning rules, these sorts of things. So yes, there will be some pushback, but he will be able to do much of what he wants to do.
And I think it's worth also saying that even when he gets pushback, in a way, the pushback is part of the point. Like, if he can, on the birthright citizenship, if he can get the Democrats to put all of their efforts and their energy into fighting him on that, one, it plays into the system and the state, and the deep state and the establishment is all against him. And two, it puts the Democrats in a position of having to argue in favour of automatic citizenship for the children of people who come to the country illegally, and that is a law, and you can make an argument for that, but it also gives ammunition to the Republicans who are like, look, the Democrats are on the side of illegal immigrants, and that very pejorative term, anchor babies, and all of that. So it puts the Democrats in the position of having to make the statements that the Republicans and Trump hopes he can then use against them further down the line.